everyone! In our continuation of 30/30 for National Poetry Month, we will be experiencing a poem from Brendan Lorber's If This Is Paradise, Why Are We Still Driving? Which is a great question to ask yourself. Brendan is another poet I know from New York City. In addition to being a lovely human and a lovely poet, he also makes these really incredible maps. He has a map for Frank O'Hara, he has a map for Emily Dickinson, for David Bowie, and he also runs his own fantasy map making courses, so you can actually take map making courses with him. I live in a different city from New York now. I met a person from New Jersey, which is basically like living in New York City if you're like right next to New York, and he had actually taken a map making course with Brendan. Brendan and we met at a poetry event. We know a bunch of mutual poets in the scene. Being in poetry communities is like very few degrees of separation. I posted the video I did for Natalie Albert's poem for the first day of April 30/30, and one of my friends on there commented, he's like, hey, love her. And so it's just that, like, yeah, everyone knows everyone. My preamble over. As for the poem itself, it is called Vacated Premise. It's a one-pager, and it's dedicated for Jim Barrel. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so apologies to Jim, wherever you are, if I just messed up your last name. Vacated Premise. Falling apart is a major part of today's plan. But I'm having a get-together tonight in which I sit by myself, trying to get it together. I don't like fantasy baseball or death, though both connect people who have nothing more than extra innings and burials in common. Just because you go doesn't mean you go somewhere. So the visitations we receive may be in the shape of others who lost someone. Maybe they were sent by Thurman Munson or a dead friend, if you go in for that sort of thing. They have expectations of their own, whether they walk the earth or walk off with it. And the vacated gap between experience and elegy gets fuzzed over in the invocations. Petitioners get in their own way by getting their way, just as one's heroes represent success despite being dicks, if you'd ever met them. Though what people say can lead you to drink, you can't fill a glass with the word whiskey. Here instead have some, what do you call it? Tears of the world. They fall for you, from me, and vice versa. If tonight the get-together works, tomorrow we're on to keeping it together. One of the interesting things that Brendan does in his poetry that I DM'd him about, because I find it interesting, he does these kind of elongated spaces. So he'll have regular spaces, but then between phrasal units, he'll have these elongated spaces. And sometimes poets just do that for form, to play around. But he's one of the few poets I see it done really consistently across his work. So I'm curious about that choice as a poet, why it insists in the form when he writes poetry, and yeah, what leads him to it. For the poetry prompt today within this video, I think there are a few things you could do. This poem feels very much like an elegy to me, so kind of like a mourning poem to a certain respect. It's also very playful in the way that Brendan has kind of this biting humor to his work. That's one of my favorite kind of components about him as a person and a poet. There's that darkness and light, and there's that like swing between the two. So I don't like fantasy baseball or death, so it goes from something like relatively trivial to arguably the least trivial thing, death. And there's that swing back and forth. Maybe they were sent by, I don't actually know who Thurman Munson is. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments below, but maybe they were sent by Thurman Munson or a dead friend. So I think when you're working on your poem today, you can think about inviting that play with humor and kind of more grave topics, if you so choose. Didn't mean to pun that one with grave and death talk, but haha, it will stay. And then one of the other fun things going on in this poem, there's a lot of repetition, but slightly twisted to certain degrees. We have the repetition of part and falling apart is a major part. The second line, a get together tonight in which I sit by myself trying to get it together. And then that comes back, so the poem feels very circular by the end. The get together works tomorrow, we're on to keeping it together being the last line. So things you can play with: repetition, elegy or playful elegy, maybe finding, if you want to have a tribute to someone who has passed, you could think about the lightest kind of components of that person, things that were funny about them. Or you could have an elegy for something ridiculous, like elegy for, I don't know, old Starbucks cups or something. I don't know. I don't know if you want an elegy for that. Starbucks does have very good coffee. Not to start a fight in the comments if people like their Starbucks. Just think about where can you invite that play. So those are some of the repetitious moments. Just because you go doesn't mean you go somewhere. There's also kind of awkward, I think I read this poem earlier, so it was a little easier for me to read again, but there were a few like awkward places in the reading of it. If I had read it exactly how the breaks were, it would have been a little more awkward. It was funny. Brendan was writing about it and messaging, and he was like, yeah, poem probably should have been an essay. Let's go ahead and write. We're gonna do 15 minutes just like the other poem, and so you can do the playful elegy, you can think about those elongated spaces, and you can think about repetitious turns of phrases. I kind of like to be vaguish with writing prompts because I think that allows an openness, that allows people to just flow. But if you do want more exact prompts or more leading prompts in future 30-30 videos, let me know in the comments and I can do that as well. So we'll go ahead and get the writing. Set the timer, starting now, 15 minutes, happy writing. 20 seconds. Go ahead and wrap up your last line. And time. How did it go, y'all? If you, I just lost all the words. If you participated in this writing session for 30/30, please let me know in the comments below how it went. In the comments below, let me know what elements of the prompt made into your poem. Did you make it a silly elegy? Was it a serious elegy? Was it not elegiac in any ways? And did you use any of Brendan's elongated spaces? Did you use those repetitious kind of turns? I actually forgot to incorporate the repetition that Brendan used in his poem, but I did play a little bit with spaces in one of mine. I think I got kind of 2 poems. It was helpful. It was really nice. And I'll link below to Brendan's book as well as his map making courses, so you guys can all check him out. He's amazing. His work is amazing. Happy to share another nice poet friend for this April 30/30. I hope you all are well, and I look forward to the next writing session with you. As always, please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and take care.